Alright, welcome back to the channel, everybody, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by and checking it out. What I have today is I have a viewer email me and gave me a link to where an Army reservist gave an interview about his Sasquatch encounter. Now, some of you guys are going to be very upset with this encounter. Like, I found myself getting very upset with it. Not gonna lie. I was really mad, then I got really sad. But you know, it is what it is, and I figured everybody deserves to hear this encounter story. Now, this gentleman was an Army reservist, and at the time of his interview, he had stage 4 cancer, and I think that's why he wanted to get this off of his chest. Now, this interview happened a few years ago, and also the person that interviewed him is no longer with us either. But they left us with a scintillating account by this guy and his Army Reserve unit and their encounter with the Bigfoot family. Not just one, but a whole Bigfoot family. And like I told you before, a lot of you guys are going to be really upset with this one. But you guys deserve to hear it, so I'm going to give it to you.
Well, where do I begin? I joined the Army in 1987. I was in recon, LRPS, and which is long range reconnaissance patrol, armor support, things like that. I was in a combat MOS. I wasn't a REMF, as they say, which is rear echelon mofo. I wasn't in the rear with the gear. We were always out front. Anyway, I did my stint in the Army and got out. Got on the police department like so many of us do. And when Desert Storm and Desert Shield happened, I was called back up. So, you know, I got my letter, go to war, go to jail. So I said, you know, hey, I got to go do this. So got released from the police department, went to a base and reported for duty. And I was an NCO, which is called a non-commissioned officer. And so I was put in charge of a section. And a section's like, you know, a platoon's made up of like 4 sections. Or squads or whatever have you. And then there's like 4 platoons in a company or a troop or whatever. Well, we were, instead of going over to the desert and doing Desert Storm, we were to replace the active duty guard and active duty reserve because they were replacing active duty. So what we ended up doing was, where I served, they had this program that was called eradication. And you would work with state and federal authorities getting up into the hills, eradicating marijuana. So what would happen is they would get up in a helicopter and start flying around and using FLIR, which is forward-looking infrared or, you know, whatever. And what they needed us for was basically security so they could come in with the DEA and if there was booby traps, ATF, and because these drug guys were like the modern day bootleggers. They would booby trap their fields, and this will come into play later on. And some of their booby traps are kind of elaborate. You know, some of these old boys, like in that song Copperhead Road, you know, they learned how to booby trap stuff over in Vietnam or Grenada or Panama, whatever. And so you'd run into some nasty stuff sometimes. You know, shotgun shells pointed down from the trees, you know, grenades dropped into cans with the pin pulled and it just held the spoon in place. And then you'd trip over that can and it would dump that grenade right out onto the trail and blow you and your buddies up. So we were, it was getting to be, we were in about our 3rd or 4th week of this. And we were getting pretty far. We were finding about a field or 2 a week, and it would take about a day and a half, 2 days to do a mop-up operation for them to burn the crops. And then, you know, us to do a ever-widening grid search to make sure we had gotten all the booby traps. And then, you know, we were extensive. One of the extensive training in our MOS, which is military occupational specialty, was, you know, intelligence, and then also, you know, dealing with explosives. So And we really, the stuff we would disarm, I don't want it to sound like I'm John Rambo, because I'm far from that. But we're not tier 1 or anything, but we support some tier 1 guys. And you guys that are tier 1, you know what I'm talking about. But so anyway, we're on about our 3rd week of this, and it's getting to be dusk. And I'm in what's called a 113 breaking bush. And 113 is an armored vehicle. It's like a big, steel box on treads. And the state police and probably some DEA guys, or there'd be one riding down with us that had a radio in the Humvee behind us. And then there was a deuce and a half behind that. But a lot of times they couldn't go where we went. So they'd go as far as they could and then, stage it. But, and then, the deuce and a half would have, MREs, meals ready to eat, the extra water, medical would hold the medic in case somebody got injured, whatever. But, so anyway, we normally stopped about dusk, and then, we would try to get back down to the main road, but if we couldn't, we would do what was called a circle. We would kind of like the wagons they did with the wagons in the Old West. We would put the vehicles, in kind of a circular and set up a guard perimeter, and we'd take turns sleeping in the deuce and a half or in the 113 or even in the Humvee. And it was summer, so it'd be hot during the day and cool at night. We were their security, their perimeter security, so they could go in and burn the crops, the marijuana, without worrying about these guys coming back down and trying to kill them. Because I'm telling you, the reason why the guard and the reserves had gotten involved with this was because a state policeman had been killed in a gunfight when they had found the crop, and then they came back and because that's a lot of money for them guys. When all this happened, when we were getting our TO&E, which is our table of equipment, normally a 113 is it's got a 50 caliber and M60 mounted on it. Well, they said, no, you don't need that kind of firepower. So what we had was M16s and 45s. And the reason why we had 45s instead of the 9mm was because they took all the Berettas at that time and gave them to active duties to go overseas. Well, anyway, so we had the old slab side Colts, and we were firing ball ammunition. And this will come into play later on as well. So all of a sudden, we're going up this hill, and we crest it, and I'm right in the middle of a pretty good size, probably about maybe 2-3 acres. I think it was like 2.7 acres of marijuana, which ain't no little bit of marijuana. And all of a sudden, the state police helicopter up above us we have a state police radio issued to each one of the vehicles. He says, "Oh my God, what is that?" And you can hear the other pilot go, "Spin around and hit it with the spotlight." And he's like, "Guys, move in the vehicle, move up." My call sign at that time was Rouster 6. Rouse somebody out, Rouster 6. Well, anyway, so he said, "Rouster 6, move out." So we moved up. I was in the commander's hatch, which is in the middle of the 113. My driver had his head stuck out of the driving, the hole there. And then we had 2 guys in the back where I had them open up the hatch, which is called an observer hatch. And we all had our CVCs on, which is how you communicate over, these armored vehicles are very loud. They're diesel. They go like, "Wah!" And so you have to have the CVCs on so you can talk to each other and hear each other over the noise. And so anyway, I told driver, move out. So he moved out, and we pulled up there, and I said, "Driver, stop, turn on the lights." We turned on the lights, and I'm going to tell you something, man. I saw something that I never will forget. There was, when you're seeing this, it takes your mind a good 30, 40 seconds to go, what is that? And then, you figure it out, and then they react, and then you react. So the helicopter's over us, they're blowing, and I'm asking them, "Can you back off a little?" Because, he's blowing the marijuana leaves off, and it's dust coming up, and it's hard for us to see. So By that time, the Humvee had caught up to us, to the three guys in there, and then Deuce and a Half pulled up. And Deuce and a Half had the officer in charge. He was a captain. And I was the NCOIC, the non-commissioned officer in charge. So we're looking out there, and my driver goes, "What the F is that?" Imagine this, if you will. Right in the middle of this field, damn near in the middle, are four monsters, five really if you count the baby, that I never thought would have existed. It looked like a cross between a bear and like Hulk Hogan, you know, the real big wrestler, or the Big Show, or one of those really huge guys, Andre the Giant, whatever. But they were covered in hair, fur, whatever. And when we hit them with the lights, man, they were not happy at all. And state police said, "Go ahead and move in." And I said, "What does that mean exactly?" And the officer in the Deuce and a Half said, "Light them up, boys." And I said, "Roger that." So I said to the guys in the 113, I said, "Lock and load." So we had 30-round magazines. We had, 4 each, and they were loaded. You never load 30 rounds in a magazine. We loaded 28. And then, of course, 2 of my guys had 45s along with me, my driver and the observer. Well, before you know it, we're pointing guns at them, and, man, they are pissed. Well, one of these is laying down, and she's a different color. And the reason I say she is, as I understand it, the females hang on to the little ones. And then all of a sudden, through all this, you could hear that the big one was going, clicking and clacking, and they were roaring. And she was roaring out, but hers was like a mew, kind of like a, And then the little one was probably about 4 feet tall. He hauled ass. He went the other way. You could tell she wanted to go after him, but she couldn't get up. And we didn't know it was a female at the time, because this is all happening within the space. I'd say this encounter took us from start to finish maybe 3.5, 4 minutes, maybe 5. The big one was black. He was black. And I'd say that sucker was probably 8, 9 feet tall. 113 is about 7, 8 feet off the ground. And this thing, he was looking at me. And I'm in the turret, so I'm about 10 feet up in the air. He would have come up to my chin. So he's sitting there and he's puffing up and he is pissed, and he starts rocking back and forth. And the 2 other ones, they were probably anywhere from 6 to 8 feet tall. And going back to what you say the alpha was, that sucker had to be 3, 4 feet across, and no telling how thick he was, from front to back. But he was monstrous, and of course you could see he was a male. You could see his genitalia. And then the two younger ones, and I say they are younger because they were kind of brown, but they didn't look as aggressive. They kind of they looked scared. And that's when I gave the command to fire. And from there, it was all hell broke loose. A M16 fires a 5.56 round, and it cooks out of that barrel about 2,300 feet per second. It's about a 55 grain boat tail. And I got to tell you, we were burning them up. And the 2 dropped down onto all fours, and they were trying to get away. And where they messed up was they turned their sides to us. So we got what was called cross-torso shots. Well, the big one, I was concentrating on him, and I went through 2 magazines, and all of a sudden, he was moving. He was coming for us. And that's when I told everybody, concentrate on the big one. So we fired up, and thank God my driver, who was a hunter and had been bear hunting, and I asked him later, I said, thank God you did what you did. He shot him in the legs and the waist. Yes, we probably broke his pelvis or broke his knees or whatever, but when he went down, and then by this time now I'm down to my 45 because I couldn't get in all this, I had laid my magazines out on the top of the 113, and they had they just went scattering. So, cause it's dark by now. I mean, we're using lights, and we didn't have any NVG night vision goggles. So I don't know why we didn't, but, anyway, so he shot him, and I said, thank God you did. And, cause I'm telling you, he was moving. I bet how far away we were was about 20 yards. And I'd say we stopped him about 7 yards from the track. But he did that in like 2 strides. And how he took off was almost like he was a football player. One of them hands, he went bent down, and one of them hands went on the ground, and Betty, he sprang like a tiger. Well, we had another sergeant that was in the Humvee, and we're still firing. And I think we hit, what was the female? I think we hit her a couple of times, but she laid down and she was still mewing and crying and whatever. So I said ceasefire, because it was obvious the other two they weren't moving. But the other NCO, he said stay in the track. He went around with his 45 and shot them all in the head, the big one and the 2 mediums. I mean, he emptied a magazine in each one of their craniums. And you could see the dust coming off in the lights. You could see the dust coming off every time that bullet smacked into them damn things. And the big one, you could see his head break apart, and the little ones were over there. But I say littler than him. I mean, you knew but this is ball ammunition, 230 grain 45 ball ammunition. Well, I tell you, we burnt him up. I know I put a whole magazine into him, probably most of it. I'm sure I missed a couple of times in his torso, because we're taught to shoot center mass. This big one he was going to take us out. These things are pods or cells or troops or whatever. The reason why they didn't run is I think they were protecting her, because I asked a supposed lieutenant colonel, may have been an MIB guy, I don't know, but he was awful stern when we went to the hospital. But anyway, I think they were protecting the female and the baby. I said, how's the wounded one? And they said, well, you don't have to worry about it. And I said, well, what happened? How come he said, well, apparently we think that a bear trap had got her and they had pried it off of her. But she obviously, they apparently have the same kind of tendons we do in it. And I mean, it had just shredded her leg. We found one on the east side and one on the south side, because we had come in from the north. You could tell they had made a nest there. They had made like a little circle. They had crushed all that marijuana down. I don't know what the hell that clacking was, that and then of course he roared a lot too. He was, I mean, he was not happy. We were told to stand down. So we stood down, and DEA guys came in, with the big vest, DEA, and the long hair, and the tactical shit. And we had some other guys come in Army uniforms. I thought they were MPs, and they stripped us down. One of my guys, back in the 90s, you remember those cameras, Kodaks, that were, they were the plastic ones that you go, you wind it up and then you just take the pictures and turn the whole camera in. Yeah, well, he had one of those in his BDU pocket. BDU is our battle dress uniform. We were still wearing, camouflage then. Well, anyway, they had us take everything off, all the way down to our boxer shorts and our socks. And then they gave us brand new BDUs, and mine was way too big. I don't know. They must have pre-planned. I mean, but let me go back. We stood perimeter security for about 30 minutes before all this took place. Well, then they got us out of there in the deuce and a half, and we go down to the hospital, and we're getting sick. On the way back, I'm thinking, well, we're coming down out of the mountain. My ears are popping. I'm thinking, okay, I just don't feel very good. Well, by the time we got to the hospital, they put us all in different rooms, and I felt like I was drunk. I was, when I went to get up to use the bathroom to do number one, I like damn near fell out of the bed, and they had to escort. The nurse was like, hold on a minute, Sergeant, da da da. So I I went in there, and then the next morning I felt like I had one hell of a headache. I mean, one hell of a hangover. Well, anyway, during all this is going on, they're debriefing us, asking us all this, how many rounds did you shoot? Where did you shoot it at? You know, this, that, and the other. And then we had to sign that non-disclosure, you know, and we got the speech of, you know, 20 years from now, if you want to talk about this, you're still going to be, we could still prosecute you and everything else. He asked me how we felt, and I told him I felt like, you know, crap. And he said exactly what's up and this, that, and the other. And see, the reason why they wouldn't let us, I forgot, but let me back up too. They wouldn't let us get near them because we wanted to go look and see what we shot. And they're like, don't, they might carry disease. They might still bite you. This, that, and the other. And when you start talking disease to soldiers, we're like going, oh no, we're not going to go up there. You know, they took blood and urine samples from us. So we're laying, you know, they said that we're going to be quarantined for a day. And I said, why is that? And they said, because we just want to make sure you're okay. But I was thinking, man, they took my blood 3 times. And then they sedated me. And of course I went out. And the next morning about 10 o'clock, this lieutenant colonel comes in with that piece of paper and gives me the speech. And that's when I asked him about that other monster. And, I said, well, you know, what happens now? He said, you guys go home. And I said, what do you mean we go home, sir? He's like, we're going to release you tomorrow. I said, I've got to stay here one more day. And, he said, and then you guys get to go home. And I said, do we do something wrong? He goes, no, Sergeant, you did everything we asked you to do. You've done your duty. And then he walked out. And then we ate, and they were kind of standoffish with us. And oh yeah, the nurses, they wore those face masks every time. But they kept us split up. You know, I couldn't talk to any of my guys, and that kind of pissed me off. You know, those are my men. But so the next day, they gave me another brand new set of BDUs, and of course they shower. You know, I had to take a shower. And what was funny about my towel and everything, they bagged that up, man. I didn't throw it on the floor. The nurse came in and it was a male nurse. Nurse came in and he got it and bagged it up and took it with him. And it wasn't just a hospital bag. It was one of them Blue Seal CDC bags. The smell was horrible. I almost vomited. It was like a skunk, but 3 times. But it was like a combination of pee and poop and dead meat but it's almost like he sprayed it at us, man. Like, we didn't really smell it till we got up on top of the hill, and then he saw us, and then, man, it hit us like a wave. It was like a 20-second, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh my God, what's that smell? You know, it was horrible. I could barely stand. I mean, when we were standing guard, I had my cravat, which is, you know, kind of a army handkerchief, you know, green. And I had that over, and then I was wetting my army field dress, and I had some gum, some mint gum, and I was putting it in there. Man, I was doing everything I could think of, but it was like I could taste that stuff, man. It was like in my mouth. It was horrible. That smell was quite something. You know what it felt like too? It felt like I've had a concussion before. It felt like a mixture of a concussion and a hangover. Well, I'll tell you the aftermath of this. I went back, of course, took another week off. Slept a lot of it, drank some. I didn't really talk to my guys after that. One we couldn't find. My driver ended up killing himself about 6 years after that. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I know he went through a bad divorce. And one of the guys in the back, he was a bad drunk and doper. And it's just a damn shame. But I kind of pushed it in the back of my head for many years while I was on the PD, you know, and I think the good Lord lets you forget it for a while, because I'm going to tell you something. I didn't want to see that shit. I wasn't trained for that. And, it's a horrible, you know, these guys that go out here and they're all like peace, love, and dandelions. Let's go out here and, you know, eat some granola with the Bigfoot and hang out with them and shit. Bullshit, man. These are wild animals and they will kill you. And I think they're opportunity predators. I think if I'd have been a hiker by myself, I wouldn't have walked out of there. I'll tell you, it was It was over probably, I'd say, in 4 or 5 minutes. Not even that, probably 2 or 3, maybe even 1. But you know, I didn't hear half the shots go off. And I remember he came in very into focus. And his teeth were big and flat. They were like, you know, chiclets, like Shrek's teeth, you know. And then on the side, I'm pretty sure he had some canines. I don't know, like small ones. I could be wrong. And the brown ones, I really didn't worry about those because I knew my driver and the other guy in the back had them. But I was more worried about that big one, you know, because he was there to do business. The female was kind of a gray silver with some black patches, you know, looked like, I don't know, but she was different color. The baby was black, not as dark as the big one, but you could tell he was going to be black. And then I guess the 2 younger ones, I think they may have been related because they looked a lot alike because they were kind of reddish brown. And then the big one, he was black, man. His skin was gray, mottled, you know, almost like he had freckles. I don't know. And, but his arms, man, they hung down by, I bet that sucker weighed anywhere from 800 to 1,000 pounds. You know, and those 2 juvenile, what you call juveniles, they probably weighed 600-700, and she probably weighed like 4 or 5. I'd say the baby probably weighed 120, 130. You know, I mean, you could tell he was a juvenile, but he was still all about her because she was holding him when we pulled. I remember he was standing behind her, and she had her arm around him. And then when we started getting crazy, she didn't want him to go, but he tore out of there and went the other way. So I don't know. And that's when that was right after that big one was doing that. You know, it sounded weird, like a cross between Charlie Brown's teacher and Chinese, you know. But I got to tell you, I was more focused on the front side of my weapon at that point. And I don't remember. I remember feeling the kick of the rifle and seeing the flash, but I don't remember hearing the shots, man. That's weird. Everything came really into focus. And like I said, every time the rounds hit him, we could see the dust fly off of him, you know, because it was kind of dry that year. When he got shot by that other sergeant, that arm like spasmed out, like he was laying on his side with his back to us, and it like spasmed out, like, you know, came raised up and spazzled out. And then it fell, you know, and then it just fell. But I don't know if that was just a reflex response or whatever. But I remember that other NCO shot him right behind the ear, like 7 times. You could see the chunks flying out of the front of his face. You know, I mean, when I saw that big one, I said a silent, you know, Lord Jesus, please protect me and my crew. You know, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition, man. I mean, it was, man, I never seen no shit like that before in my life. And I don't ever want to see it again. Never. This shit is real. They really do exist. And I don't know if this 411, I'm not saying that they're the cause of all that, but they probably got some of it. And you know what's funny? I could not, other than hunting a couple times, I made sure I was out of the woods by dark. I was thinking about that. I never have gone camping since then. You know, I'm a trained investigator, 20-some-odd years on the PD, 6 of them in narcotics, you know, some in command. I just got to tell you, I never seen no shit like that, man. It's still hard to wrap my mind around it.
Okay, so there you folks have it. What did you guys think about that story? How were those emotions that you guys had? Were you guys like me? You got mad and then you got sad? That's terrible what happened to that family of Sasquatch. I don't even really know what to say about the story, to tell you the truth. I don't know why a gentleman that had stage 4 cancer would make something like that up, so I think that it's probably true. The government does things all the time and keeps us out of the loop, as you guys probably know. I don't need to tell you guys that. You guys probably already figured that one out a long time ago. Leave me some comments. Let me know what kind of emotions you guys felt when you guys heard this story. If you're new to the channel, think about subscribing. I got some new videos coming out, some crazy videos. And as always, hit that like button for me if you liked the video. Remember, if you guys want to hear the whole interview about other things also, not just the Bigfoot, go to Brenton Samwin's Mysteries to Search. And I'll leave a link in the description. And you guys can go ahead and listen to the whole interview, the questions back and forth. And if you have any Bigfoot encounter stories you would like to share with me, please feel free to email me at willstarbigfoot@aol.com. Remember guys, there's some WILLSTAR merchandise, and I have a Patreon membership if you guys want to join. Those links will be in the description. And if you guys like these kind of videos, check out this playlist right here. And if you want some other kind of Bigfoot videos, check out this playlist right here. And always remember guys, where there is a WILLSTAR, there is a way. And we will talk to you guys later. Take care.